I've been a mortgage loan officer now over 4 years, and building wealth with real estate is everything. I didn't know that, of course, until I bought my first house. I think ultimately you say, I have a wife, I got some kids, I need to buy a house. But we don't actually realize the financial freedom and the things that come after that. Everyone has this burden that's like, oh my gosh, I gotta take care of my credit, or I gotta save all this money, and I gotta do all these things to buy this house, and have this stress. They put on the stress and then they don't do it. I just want to tell my story because it wasn't a perfect scenario. It was ultimately that my wife and I were like, yeah, we need to buy a house. We're at this level. We have a couple kids. We need to go buy this house. And so this is back in 2013. Yes, don't make fun of me. I know then house prices were probably nicer than they are today, or mortgage rates they're okay. They were still actually in the high fives when we bought our first house. So nothing too crazy than what it is now. But, I had to go into this, and my wife and I, we had stable jobs, and we had to talk to a lender. We got to know, is this even possible? And when I say it that way, I'm going to give you a couple horror stories that I went through personally to buy my first house. One, credit. I was sub 600, not even. I think I was like a 589 to buy my first house. And then I didn't have a whole bunch of money saved, but luckily I started my professional journey when I was 23 years old, and I was able to start a 401k. So that was my down payment. I had money in there that putting money to the side and make that happen. So now I got money in the bank. I got a pretty crappy credit score. My wife is actually doing a lot better in all those scenarios. She had better credit score and better income at the time. But then, knowing what my numbers were with loan amount, purchase price, how much money we had to come to close, I had to ask for mom and dad to give me a little bit of a gift. And luckily they were willing to do that. And so not knowing the facts or not knowing the details and tripping over myself with a terrible credit score, not exactly complete all this money in the bank and pulling money all over the place, or we're getting to a place in the loan process, we're almost closing. And of course, there's this medical debt that said, hey, we have to clear this up or we're not getting this house. Believe it or not, that medical debt was $78. That's it. Of course, I could have paid it any time. I just didn't know about it. And so with my loan officer at the time, he was like, listen, this has to get cleared up and taken care of. And then once that's done, then we'll be able to close on this loan. So $78. That is the medical bill I had to pay. But at the same time, I had to beg them to clear it off the credit bureau. So now I have a small little fee and a person that they don't care about me. They have to do something for me and do it quickly so that I can close on this house. So I'm sure this loan officer hated our guts. Right? Terrible credit score, no money in the bank. I got to deal with this other credit piece. And now that it may take some time for that, we had to go back to the sellers and go, listen, we need 2 more weeks. No seller wants to hear that either, especially those sellers because they're going through a divorce. So high emotions already. That's not fun. Lots of not fun here. All right. For my first home, buying my first home. But what was great about it, we had an amazing realtor that I do work with that to this day. And a mortgage loan officer knew exactly what to do and then put us in the right position to close on that loan. And voila, 2 weeks later, we closed it with an FHA loan and able to buy our first house. $315,000 in Gilbert, Arizona. I bought a condo 7 years before that at $305,000 in Scottsdale. So things are weird and things change and market changes. And when your time's right, your time's right. I don't know if my time was right, but it was the time that we bought a house. And I love sharing that story because there's so many people that I speak to that state, oh, I got to get my credit a little better, or I need more money in the bank. I'm about to get this bonus or this pay raise, or I need a better job to make sure I afford a house. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's not what this is about. Owning a home is about getting in the game as quickly as you possibly can. Why? Because in my story, 2013, I bought that house. In 2017, I sold that house. I sold that house and walked away with $50,000, right? I didn't put a large down payment. It's not like I put a huge down payment to get that money back in 2017. It was called appreciation. And with appreciation, the extra dollars I had with appreciation, I was able to buy a $480,000 house. Now, of course, at that time, interest rates comes down, a little bit of strategy, right? My mortgage didn't change a whole lot because I had so much more money down for that next house. But of course, I wouldn't have that money if I rented. I wouldn't have another 50 grand in 4 years. No way. That 50 grand came from the house. So as you get in and build appreciation, you're able to use that money for that next house and that move up purchase. And I want to make sure that 2 things, that you're probably better situation than I was buying your first house. And I hope you take that and run with it and let's talk and get you there. But 2, that the first house you buy doesn't have to be the house. The first house you buy is just one that you're able to keep your bills down, right? I didn't have to worry about my rent going up. I didn't have to worry about overgrowing with additional kids and things of that nature because, of course, course, in 2014, we had a third kid. So we wanted to get into a different property because, you know what, that was our first house. We wanted something new. And so we bought a new build in 2017. And now that put us in another trajectory. Since now that price was at 480 versus 315, as you appreciate, the dollar amounts in the next 7 years is going to be very different. You have a different ceiling. And so building wealth, this is what this means. I took a $350,000 house, earned 50 grand, bought a $480,000 house, and now the house is worth over $1 million. Who else can tell you to give you $500,000 in 10 years? Who, by just paying your bill? I didn't dump a bunch more money in the house. I didn't do anything crazy besides do a little upgrades to some renovations in the house. It was a new build and all I did was the backyard. This is a story to tell you that this is what building wealth means in real estate. It's not about the first house and getting the house. It's about just getting in the game. And no matter what you have going on with you, whatever your situation is, I want to make sure I provide that same grace as the first loan officer did for us, because no one's perfect. You just got to start and have a right conversation. And that's why people want to come to me and say, hey, Eli, I know I want to buy a house. I just don't know how to get there. I love answering that question and sharing my story, as you just heard, and able to go ahead and make sure that here's the details you need or I need to put you in that position. And let's work together, whether it's now or later, in getting you into a home.